So nice to see everyone today. Like I mentioned, my name is Carlos Jimenez. I'm the manager of writing support here with Kate Sachs, writing support specialist. And we'll be providing you a webinar today on managing assignments. So I will go ahead and I'll share my screen. And we want to try to make this as interactive as possible. I know we have a small group. Maybe to start, if you can just type in maybe what current program you are in, and then maybe what term, if whether this is the first term or second or maybe first year. Maybe type that in the chat just so we get an idea. We have about 4 of you today. Um, EDD first term, so a doctoral program. All right, we have doctoral group. We have the ADMS, so the Masters of Science in Education, first term, Camille. MACLP, first term. Okay, so psychology. All right, so it looks like we have a well-rounded group here in MACLP. So we have psychology masters, we have education masters, and we have education doctoral program. So I'm going to share my screen and feel free to ask questions. You can type question in the chat. We'll also leave some room for some Q&A if we have some time after we're done. And also we have a few, guiding questions along the way. So we hope you feel free to uh, to chime in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself as well. So just to get started on what the agenda will be for today, everybody sees my screen, right? Strategies for managing assignments. Okay, so the agenda today, um, we'll talk about some various different types of assignments. So we'll focus on a few primary types of assignments. One would be, discussing or analyzing peer-reviewed research, so journal articles. Also, some reflection papers, which you might have typically in, the beginning terms, the first year, where Kate will talk about that. Also talk about applying theory to practice. So in what context that might be. We'll try to cover the spectrum across psychology and education, as well as some doctoral practice there, and then we'll briefly discuss some strategies for the actual writing, so which includes planning, drafting and revising, and then we'll also talk a little bit about organization and time management skills. So I'll get started here. This is just an overview of some common assignment types that you might have, whether it's the first term or whether it's the first year. And a lot of these can be across between divisions. You might have a critical analysis based on textbook or a journal article or some type of research. You might be asked to compare and contrast some things. You might ask to paraphrase and respond to a particular source. You often involve journals and reflection writing. There might be some review and synthesis of the literature, whether it's in the initial term or subsequent terms. Usually, many programs will have some element of a literature review embedded. Also, an annotated bibliography, some cultural informant interview, which is particular to the psychology side. Then you might be asked to talk about some types of theories, whether it's a leadership style or a particular theory. A lot of times in the education side, you're asked to develop your own teaching philosophy and kind of or your theoretical orientation on the psychology side. You might talk about a learning theory or a pedagogical practice, or looking at different cases, different vignettes and conceptualizing those. And I wanted to kind of just open it up to you all here. Maybe if there's anything here that's not on the list that maybe you've had to do in your first term or the initial, what are some types of assignments that you've encountered, in your initial term? So it looks like everyone is in their first term here, right? So we're all first terms. Is there anything missing here? Anything else that you might have had in your first term? No, pretty much covered it. Okay. All right, good. I guess I did my homework there. I guess that's in the 12 years that I've been working here, seeing all of the different types of assignments. But this is kind of a general gist of what you're encountering, in your initial term. So we won't be able to cover every single thing, but we'll break it down into some base types of assignments, and we'll discuss those. So one of the major pieces, especially in the first term, is reviewing and reading through the research, right? So that could be a textbook, but often it comes in the form of understanding journal articles or peer-reviewed journal articles. So here are some different steps that will help. First, of course, we want to make sure that we understand and we comprehend the material. So that involves what we consider, close reading. And some of that is understanding how the structure of those studies are formed, right? And so we can break them down into these different sections. I would recommend, downloading the articles as PDFs. Sometimes you might have it as a link. The instructor will provide the link and it will already be a PDF. If you're searching for sources, I would, always try to download them and save a copy, download to your desktop so that you can use the different features of highlighting and annotating. So directly on the document. And I have some examples that we can look at. Um, if you haven't had if you don't have it, you do have a free version of like Adobe Reader, which is free for everyone. There's a link here. And so that, there's different software to view the PDF, but Adobe Reader allows for those annotations for things like underlining and highlighting and making notes. Um, and breaking down the study into various sections. So typically we're going to see these primary sections if it's a research study, if there were, participants, or what we would call a peer-reviewed journal article, usually going to have these sections: an introduction, some type of literature review. Sometimes the introduction and literature review are combined, and then you'll have a methods, the results, and discussion. So they're typically going to be broken down into these sections with some various subsections. If you are searching for sources and you're determining, whether or not to use them or trying to get a base understanding, you can try to just get the gist by kind of looking at these primary sections. So, of course, the abstract is going to give you everything about that particular study all wrapped up into a concise, paragraph or half a page that's going to really tell you everything about that particular study. Then might try just reading the first few paragraphs, maybe the section just before the methods, which includes research questions and the purpose statement. Sometimes the methods can get a little bit overwhelming to dive into right away. So it's recommended maybe move to the discussion. Then you can see what those major findings were. Then you can, make the determination, does it fit if I'm researching about a topic, or should I keep reading more? But kind of scanning through and reading these primary sections can give you that gist or get that general understanding of the document. But sometimes, you might be forced, to have, here's the article, and you have to analyze it and critique it. There's some examples here. I'm gonna um, just stop my screen really quickly and pull up some of these PDFs here. Um, So here's an example of a journal article. Just kind of wanted to show how some of the structure might appear. So there's usually going to be headings, larger headings there that are going to indicate where those sections are, where you have the abstract, generally the beginning, and then you'll see those sections. So I'm using Adobe Reader just to show you kind of how the annotation might work. You can select phrases and then you can choose to highlight. You can also comment on these, um, different annotations. You can use things like the sticky note. If you right click, you can add a comment anywhere on the document. So, you want to use the annotating and these features to your advantage. as you're, combing through the document. Also, maybe highlighting certain ideas or key quotes. You want to make sure that you remember, where you found that, especially if you're looking at a number of different sources. So really looking closely and annotating. Maybe there are certain words that might be, unfamiliar. So I would suggest even having a dictionary or thesaurus on hand, as you are reading, and trying to get, context. But you can see normally there is a system of headings. Here's the method. And so that will help as you kind of cycle through the different sections of the paper. Here's another example. Here we just have bold headings here that separate each section. Here's introduction, where we have the statement of the problem and research objectives are before the literature review, but you can see those sections are defined there with headings. The methodology breaks down, and then we have the findings and discussion. Um, another view here of a different article. Here, the PDF already creates the bookmarks, so I can easily scan through the introduction, the literature review, the various methods section, results, and discussion. So it makes it really easy to navigate through the document with these bookmarks. And this just was created automatically when I opened up the PDF in Reader. So very convenient. So I would recommend, trying your best to download, save a copy, and then open with a PDF, some type of PDF tool like Adobe Reader there. Um, Anyone have questions on journal articles or any particular sections that they've had concerns about or anything unfamiliar? Not in particular. Yeah, feel free to jump in and chime in the chat if you do have any particular questions. Also, in you'll also be asked to critically analyze a lot of these sources, right? So you're looking, this is where they're asking you to provide your evaluation, your lens, right? So you are summarizing to a degree, you're restating the focus of the study, but also you might be required to critically analyze or critique, right? So you're generally kind of looking to see, do things flow logically? Are things easy to understand? You might look specifically at the methods or the instruments, including maybe like the sample size or the tools that they used. Also reliability and validity. So I wanted to ask, what do those terms mean to you when you think of reliability or validity of a journal article or of a study? What do you think that means? Maybe you can type in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute. Anybody have any ideas on what reliability or validity would mean? Maybe not. Well, reliability is really breaks down to consistency, right? So we were looking for, if to see if the study were repeated under the same conditions, would the outcomes be the same, right? Would there be similar outcomes? So it's really a matter of consistency. Validity would be measuring how accurately the study is doing what it's intending to, right? Is it measuring what it intends to measure? We want to ensure the results are reflecting the concept being studied. So when we think about validity is more accuracy. So reliability is consistency, validity is accuracy, right? Also looking at how strong the arguments are. Are the claims made? Are they supported with evidence? That's typically why you would see a literature review that's embedded within these studies, because they're using the literature, they're showing that they've done their homework, and so to speak, right? They've done their due diligence on the topic, and they're using these sources to support. Also relevance. So you're looking at application. So considering how does the study contribute to your understanding of a topic, or how might it inform you as a future organizational leader or a future practitioner or therapist or instructor, educator. right? So we're always looking for that application to maybe our future profession and also just our understanding of a concept or a particular on the topic. I think Kate is going to talk to us about reflection papers, another type of assignment.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, so one common paper that you'll have to write is the reflection paper. And in psychology, you'll typically have to reflect on a theoretical orientation, such as cognitive behavioral therapy or psychoanalytic theory. On the education side, you might reflect on a learning theory, a teaching or a leadership theory, or a pedagogical approach. So for these types of papers, there's a basic structure you can use. First, introduce the theory or approach, and it just explain its basic features. Then you want to discuss its benefits and limitations, its strengths and weaknesses. And then finally, reflect on whether or how you would use the theory or approach in your work. So, for example, on the psychology side, does humanistic theory resonate with you? Maybe you would only use it with clients suffering from certain kinds of disorders. So, that's something you can explain in your reflection. Or if you're a stalwart opponent of constructivism, you can explain your reasoning there. So, these are examples of the reflection part of your reflection paper. And then I think the next slide, we have an example. Uh, okay, so using relational cultural theory in your practice. As an effective therapist, I can empower my clients to strive for enhanced relational experiences. This approach will provide an opportunity for me to use our collaborative therapeutic relationship as a model for real life relationships to support the client in making the personal changes they desire through relational movement. So here, the student is putting herself in the role of therapist and explaining how she'll use relational cultural theory. In using the clinician client relationship as a model for the client's real life relationships, she'll help the client work toward making changes to improve his relationships. So again, here the student is putting herself in the role of a therapist and applying the theory.
Hmm. Yeah, and I was just going to add, on the educational side, you would essentially just kind of replace this with a different context, right? As an effective educator or as an organizational leader, and then looking at how you would implement maybe a leadership theory or a leadership style, or a pedagogical practice or a type of a teaching method or theory, right? We would just replace kind of these terms and put it in that context. But the same structure, the same goals are there, just within that different context.
Okay. And again, this can happen in various papers on both the psychology and education side, applying theory. So you'll be asked to either apply a theory to a client on the psychology side. On the education side, apply a pedagogical approach to a class or a leadership style to an organization. For example, how would you apply cognitive behavioral theory to a client who suffers from anxiety or depression? Or how would you apply classical theories? Excuse me. How would you apply classical theories to mobilize a particular constituency? So one good tip is to draw direct connections between the situation and the theory, or the client's biography and the theory. For example, if you're applying behaviorist theory to a client, you can label the positive reinforcements that are affecting the client's behavior. Or you could explain how operant conditioning might change the client's behavior. If you describe an aspect, or excuse me, if you just describe an aspect of the behavior, um, or the biography or the situation, try to label it with a theoretical term. Um, it's also helpful to weave the theory and the biography or the situation into the same paragraph or even the same sentence. You want to avoid writing large paragraphs of client history or biography, or a large paragraph on a particular situation in an organization. You really want to try to weave the theory into your narrative. And here are also a list of sentence stems that can help you, like through the lens of cognitive theory, or from a constructivist perspective, or according to a certain approach. These are good stems to help lead you into this kind of integration of theory. And then let's see. Okay, so here's an example in which we're applying cognitive theory to this character, Stan. From his early years, Stan developed a distorted view of himself as a loner, a loser, stupid, inferior, socially inept person. These are cognitive distortions, and using CBT will challenge these thoughts along with challenging Stan's self-schema. CBT is going to be used as an intervention to dispute Stan's catastrophic thinking and distorted views of himself. These dysfunctional attitudes and views of himself are leading and reinforcing his depression and anxiety. So here, we're not just describing Stan's idea of himself as stupid and inferior. We're labeling it as a cognitive distortion, because this is a term that's used specifically in cognitive theory. We're also connecting his thoughts or distorted views of himself with his anxiety, because according to cognitive theory, thoughts are related to emotions. And then again, this is also an example of weaving theory with biography into the same paragraph. Again, we do recommend that you not write like a paragraph describing the theory and then a paragraph describing the organization or an individual. These paragraphs are usually most successful when you're integrating theory into the specific case. Okay, and then I think we have another example.
Yeah, and just for context on Stan, this is part of a textbook. The Corey is a textbook in psychology uh, programs, and you would have some like a type of vignette where you would have a scenario, and they would give you information about that scenario, and then you would be applying it through a various theoretical approach, or so that information about the client, or in this case Stan, that is there for you, and it's for you to interpret that through a particular lens.
Okay, now we have another example um, of integrating an idea of a theory into a sentence. So from a Freudian perspective, again, we're using one of the sentence stems here. From a Freudian perspective, Stan is stuck in the oral stage of development when he drinks. So here, drinking is a behavior. Now, if we were applying cognitive theory, we might connect his drinking to his thoughts or his emotions, because these are all interconnected. But here we're seeing his behavior through the lens of Freudian theory. So we explain it as Stan being stuck in the oral stage. So you want to think of your theory or your approach as a kind of lens through which you are seeing any particular situation or problem or case with a person. And then,
Yeah, so kind of shifting a little bit to kind of now the actual writing stages, right? We want to make sure that we really develop a routine and a systematic process for approaching our writing assignments, right? And that way we can really pattern that and do that consistently as much as we can, dealing with, the circumstances of life. But we really want to try our best to really set up a process for planning, drafting, and revising, right? Also resting. You want to make sure that we take appropriate pause, and we're not trying to rush, things too quickly. But what is extremely essential is making sure that we understand the prompts, right? So we want to make sure that we understand what the assignment is asking us to do. And we can do that by breaking down the assignment into parts, using a highlighter or some type of table or outline that's going to identify, each specific aspect of the prompt, especially if it's complex or it may involve multiple questions or multiple parts. Then we can separate those different parts and then maybe use bullets or to create kind of an outline that can then transform into the paper, right? So each of those bullet points can kind of be a mini heading. You can use APA has the system of headings, and so that's really helpful for organization, for you as the writer and also for the reader to be able to clearly move through each section. And it will also ensure that you're covering all of those pieces of the prompt, right? If you're including those as, primary sections in the paper. But like I mentioned, we want to make sure that we're allocating enough time for this, researching, pre-writing and drafting, then the revision process, and also incorporating rest periods, to not, overwhelm ourselves. We did our last webinar was on writing anxiety. That's up on our YouTube page, how to strategies for managing, alleviating writing anxiety. So we encourage you to check that out on our YouTube channel if you haven't seen it already. Um, and also, dedicating time to that brainstorming, maybe doing some free writing on the topic or the prompt. And in this, we consider this kind of low stakes. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself that now you're actually doing the writing. Just kind of think about it. Maybe we have a lot of ideas in our head, and we're thinking, but it's really, optimal approach to get those ideas out on the paper, right? And we can do that not thinking about a final version, we're just kind of thinking about the ideas and our thoughts on the ideas. And that's kind of, hopefully, ideally, that's where we're not getting so inhibited with the information. We can just kind of get our thoughts out in a low stakes manner. And then from that, start to analyze what we've written and then maybe think about how that might translate to the actual paper. But we really want to dedicate time um, for that process so that we're not so rushed and so pressured into getting something completed. Some other tips on the actual drafting. So we want to kind of think about what we call the naive audience. So, thinking about our reader as someone who is intelligent but may not really fully understand the concepts that we're presenting, right? Which is the course material. Because number one, that's going to serve the reader who may not understand. Obviously, you are writing for your instructor, but also it's demonstrating to the instructor that you have an understanding of these concepts by defining them, by using them, in a way that you're explaining before they're being, discussed or used. It's demonstrating that you have that knowledge and that you feel, confident in being able to use them. And so that does involve explaining these concepts thoroughly, including examples of these concepts or seeing what relevant sources can align with those definitions, right? Also getting,
Oh,
did
sorry. I was going to say, in addition to concepts, also explaining or defining certain terms that you're using, especially if you're dealing with certain populations, defining your terms is also good to
Mhm.
note.
Absolutely. Yeah, and also maybe some subjective terms like success or achievement. Sometimes those terms need to be clarified, need to be defined before you can use them. And so that's usually done, earlier on in maybe an introduction to the paper. It does depend on the context, but making sure that you've established solid definitions for these terms is important so that you can, then use them more freely throughout the paper. But getting that feedback. So at and many stages, it doesn't need to be necessarily you're at the final stage when you get that feedback, but asking, a friend, a spouse, also, the writing consultants, we are here for you as well. But maybe someone that's not directly familiar with the topic or the subject so that they can come with that perspective, with kind of that naive audience perspective and they can kind of gauge if things are clearly explained or things need to be a little bit more clarified. And then also addressing the relevance. That's so what we want to try to demonstrate think about how this topic would be relevant to you as a future practitioner or therapist or educator or, organizational leader. Like why should we essentially be reading about this topic? Looking for that future application. Some revision techniques. So this could be, a whole a whole nother webinar here, but just some tips here on some best practices for revision. Reading your paper aloud, even printing it out. Sometimes when we read it from the computer screen, or we read silently, we might self-correct. We might end up not really identifying some issues that we might when we're reading it aloud. We can also hear natural pauses and flow, so that can check for commas and make sure maybe run-ons or sentence fragments. We might be able to identify that by speaking it out rather than just reading it. And then look, taking a step back, looking at the big picture. Are we delivering what we say we're going to deliver? Do we have that thesis? Typically every paper is going to include some guiding statement that has a roadmap or a blueprint for the rest of the paper, where it usually comes after the introduction. It's going to lay out for the reader what the next sections are going to entail. So we're looking for that. Also looking, within paragraphs. So cohesive structure. You might have heard this meal plan. So this is a way to help break down parts of the paragraph. And you can think about them with these different sections, right? That main idea is that first sentence of the paragraph, right? What what is this paragraph about? Essentially, you're telling us, right? And then all of the other sentences should align with that main idea, with that topic sentence. So we're supporting that main idea with some type of evidence. So that's the E. So some type of elaboration, maybe some examples. This is where we integrate sources from the textbook or some of our articles. We're really supporting that main idea with clear evidence. And then we follow that up with our analysis. So after we provide that evidence, we really want to see, the instructors want to see you interpret that information and put it in your own words and highlight the meaning or the importance there using your own language, right? So that really shows that you're thinking critically and not just, kind of regurgitating the information that you're reading about and copying and pasting it into the paper, right? And then after that analysis, we have some type of concluding statement or link that brings the reader back to either one of the main points or that topic sentence there, kind of with that book ending there. So, as you are reading through your paragraphs and looking back, check to see, do you have this structure in place? Do things does that idea maybe seem out of place? Do I need to create a new paragraph for that, or do I need to revise my topic sentence so that those ideas align? And as you're doing that, you're checking for that coherence. Are these ideas connected across sentences and then also across paragraphs? So again, asking, writing consultants for feedback. We're here for you as part of writing support services available for virtual and in-person consultations as well as written feedback. So you do have that option too as a student to request written feedback, and we can provide some comments on any drafts that you had. And then also the proofreading process. So we know it's very essential. You have the Grammarly tool. How many are signed up with Grammarly? Raise your hand if you have the Grammarly. No, I'm shaking your heads. So if you, as Pepperdine students, you have a GSEP student, you have access to Grammarly. So just send us an email. You can send me an email. I'll put my email here, or you can always email our writing support inbox, and then we can ensure that you get a link to sign up for the Grammarly or gsep.writing support at Pepperdine edu, which I'll drop those in there. So yes, as a GSCP student, you have access to Grammarly, which is the premium version. It's normally like $10 a month, but it's really helpful for that automated feedback with grammar, with syntax. It has vocabulary. It'll help for conciseness, even provide some explanations along the way as well. So any other, yeah, I wanted to open it up. Maybe if anyone else, are there any other strategies or that maybe you've implemented in the past or that have worked well for you? that maybe we didn't cover here? Any thoughts on maybe some things that have helped you? Well, think about that. You can go ahead and type that in the chat. We'll move on to a little bit about organization. So organization, this is kind of just in general, some best practices for helping to organize, and all in resources. Resources are really helpful, and you have some of those available for free. So like MS Word, Microsoft Word, if you have Microsoft Word or Excel, there are some templates. Like for example, I'm going to just stop my share really quick and I'll pull up a template here. This is just a traditional calendar template that you can find in Word. And then you can, type in, different tasks or different assignments here. A lot of the learning platforms too will have some calendars. But a lot of those are just specific to the specific class, right? So you might have multiple calendars with different, if you're taking more than one class, you have to jump around. So it might be helpful to centralize something here. So it could be as simple as just, using a Microsoft Word template or Excel sheet. There are also some other online tools that I have found pretty helpful, like this Trello or this Notion. And I'll click here. Everybody sees that web page? Yeah. So this is a free, scheduler planner, breaks down task management, helps you visualize your schedules. Um, a lot going on with a lot of the features. You can also make these collaborative, so they integrate with other tools like social media. Slack is another platform for communication, Google Drive. But they can be used independently, or you can also use them, collaborate and share. Another one here is this Notion. So here's another one, and they have one specifically for students, a student planner. And so there are different templates. You can also integrate, it looks like other different apps, like music apps and whoops, and different features. So, and a lot of this is free. They have free plans. They have free versions. And so, like, for example, if you have a cohort of with your classmates, you can maybe all get together and share, one of these schedulers, and kind of you can all interactively collaborate and, communicate in real time too. So, they have a lot of online tools that make this, this organizing and managing different projects a lot easier now. Whoops, let me go back. And yeah, and Kate's going to talk some more about, some time management, but really just trying your best to break down these assignments into the manageable chunks so that we're not overwhelmed, so that we don't have, so much to do in a short amount of time. It's really a matter of trying your best to space your time out and to break things down to where maybe, on days where you might not have a lot of time, you might, be getting, maybe just a few tasks done, whereas maybe some longer time, that you can dedicate, on another day, but trying your best to kind of make it manageable for you, and to not, get yourself so overwhelmed. So go ahead, Kate was going to talk more about time management skills.
Yeah, I think managing your time is key to keeping yourself organized. Um, let's see, as Carlos mentioned, create having some sort of calendar, which can help, especially if you're visually oriented, so that you can see when your assignments are due. Maybe having a calendar that is integrated with, if you have a family calendar or, a calendar with other aspects of your life. So when certain assignments are due, how much time you're going to have, to be able to see visually, your week at a glance or your month at a glance, how many days you have in between assignments. Um, and then starting early is always a good idea whenever possible. That's a huge part, I think, in avoiding the stress, or avoiding feeling overwhelmed by your assignments. Also, you want to give yourself time in case, throughout the course of writing or working on a draft, your ideas or your opinions wind up changing. We talked about applying theory before. You could start applying a theory, applying an approach to a situation, and then realize that maybe it doesn't quite work as well. And so you need to take a few steps back. So you want to give yourself time for those sorts of situations. Um, let's see. Again, as Carlos said, breaking down assignments into smaller pieces. I think that also helps to alleviate stress, make yourself feel a little less burdened. Um, so if you're working on a literature review excuse me, as an example, you're deciding what articles to use. So, spend some time reading the abstracts of articles, get a sense of, how long it's going to take you to find enough relevant articles for your literature review. Um, Sort the findings, that can be, a period of time that, you devote yourself to during the day. Um, you can spend time taking notes. I think the main idea is that you don't feel like you have to sit down and start writing a paper from sentence one until your conclusion. Um, if you break the assignment down into different parts where you feel comfortable maybe approaching an assignment from the beginning, you're writing down main ideas, so maybe you're starting in the middle of a paper, if that's what you're gravitating toward. Don't feel pressure to write from introduction directly through to your conclusion. um, and again, setting deadlines for yourself. I want to have an outline by this date. I want to have, a solid draft done at least a week before the due date. Or if you do want to, seek out help at writing support, or if you want to have another reader, give yourself enough time so that if you do need to revise the paper or make any edits, you have enough time to do that and that you're not working last minute. Um, so does anyone have any kind of time management strategies that they use that you might want to share?
I just do. I just do use the calendar like you said, and I
Mhm.
break it out. And Kate knows that I'm on her schedule all the time because of just breaking it down. So if you guys haven't, it's like the best thing to do. So that's basically my time management. But I get the assignment and then I back it up on how I'm going to write the outline and utilizing the skill set, the skill that you said, Carlos, too, about breaking it down. I'll take out, like, if it's a whole paragraph, each sentence, and then start just free writing. But that came from Kate, of just organizing my paper, and it really helped me out. So kind of hitting 2 points of what
Mhm.
Carlos said, and then Kate with the time. And a big thank you.
Oh, good. No, I'm so glad. Um,
Yeah, and yeah, just keep in mind, if you are seeking writing support, midterms and finals, right? It gets busy, right? So, like for example, written feedback. If you're requesting written feedback, you might see on Monday that you won't be able to upload your paper to a slot until maybe Thursday or Friday. There might be slots taken, so your paper's not going to you're not going to receive that written feedback until sometime 48 hours after the Thursday date, right? So just keep in mind that you might have to plan ahead, especially if you want the written feedback. That seems to be more popular among the students are requesting the written feedback. So you might see some slots, filled up early in the week, and you might have to wait to get that written feedback until later. Usually consultation appointments, there's some more flexibility where you don't necessarily have to have a paper ready when you book the appointment. So you can book the consultation in advance for a future date. And then if you're still working on the paper, but it is good to always try your best to send the paper or upload it, before the appointment time, because otherwise it will just be, at that time, during that appointment time is when the consultant might be reading your paper then. So, I mean, it definitely can be done there where we can provide feedback, but You know, I know, like personally, I always like to get the paper ahead of time so I can make comments, I can provide some written feedback, and then when we have the appointment, it can be much more productive. We can discuss the feedback and answer those questions. But you know, it's really depending on your progress, right? How far along you are with the paper. But if your timeline is a little bit tighter, I would suggest using the consultation schedule rather than the written feedback because it might be somewhat of a delay until you get that feedback if it's on the written schedule.
Mhm.
Yeah, so yeah, any questions? Any questions about any of the content that
Or
we've
yeah, on any particular kind of paper that you've had trouble with, or yeah, any aspects of any papers.
Let me ask a question. How many have used WC Online, maybe the WC Online system to schedule, or how many are registered with the W? So a couple of as okay, so we have a few, but I just wanted to maybe we can just show really quickly how that looks. So I'm just going to go to our writing support page, and I'll drop this link in the chat as we do have a few minutes here. So this is our home page. This is where you can find you know, all things writing support. You see we have a few different tabs here. There is an events page. Usually we update this every term with the different events that we have going on, different webinars, different presentations. There's a resources page where you can find, well, I can just click here and show, oops. Sorry about that. Let me go back. So events, so you'll see the list of events with an RSVP link. Our resources page has a lot of tabs that are drop down. So different information, like for example, the Turnitin project site, the Grammarly information, although now you'll get an email. So just send an email here to our writing support inbox or me directly, and I can send you a link to join. Things like APA format, all of these have a lot of downloadables. So either PowerPoints or PDFs or Word documents. There's even some English language learner support and then even dissertation. We do have a dissertation support page as well, where you can find your respective division and more information there with resources and a videos page. We have a videos page here where you can see there are direct links to a lot of these different writing topics. This Jumpstart series, you can see a lot of different topics here. As we'll get the writing anxiety up here as well as this one from today. We also have a YouTube channel. So we have a YouTube channel here where you can find a lot of the video content as well. But we also have the WC Online system. So this My WC Online button, if you click here, you can find the My WC Online schedule. And so here you'll see, well, I'm logged in, but you'll need to register. So here, when you go to our, I'll just drop this link as well to our homepage there. Um, so this will take you to the register login page. You just need your campus-wide ID, use your Pepperdine email, and then you'll see there are two schedules here. So there's a consultation schedule and a written feedback schedule. The consultation schedule would be if you would like to meet on a particular day or time. So you can see it's like a calendar view. You can see Kate and I are on there as well as our other, you know, writing consultant team. And so this, you would book an appointment if you wanted to meet on a day or time. So if you wanted to meet on Friday with Josh at noon, you would create an appointment. And so it's going to ask you some information about your assignment, maybe what you're looking for. Always being as detailed as you can is helpful with the instructions so that we know, you know, what the paper, what's expecting, you know, to be done. Also, sometimes professors want to be notified, so you can put in your instructor's email, and we'll send them an email confirming that we met after the appointment, and then uploading your files. So if you have a draft or you have assignment instructions, you can upload your paper. And then when you create the appointment, your reviewer will get an email and they'll usually send you some type of invitation through Zoom or a calendar invitation to meet for that particular day or time. If you are if you don't have the ability to meet, you can use the written feedback schedule. So the written feedback schedule looks similar, but here, so you can see a lot of these spaces are filled, right, for this week. So all of these slots have been used by a student that has uploaded their paper. So really it would be not until maybe Monday or Tuesday when you would be able to get that written feedback. So you can see there's much more demand here for the written feedback, but you would just be choosing an open space. So you're looking for an open slot and you're clicking there, and then in the same manner, you're creating kind of an appointment form, but you're not meeting. And you would actually need to have a paper to upload. So in this case, you would need a draft to book the appointment. And then it would be expected. So if you did use Kate's slot here on the 25th, she would be providing feedback about 1 to 2 days from this Monday date. So the written feedback does kind of require a little bit more advanced prep, and having a draft ready. But this is available for you, throughout your program. The Grammarly tool should be there, as long as you're a student. So yeah, definitely want to encourage you to take advantage, of these resources while you're here at Pepperdine. Any other questions? Any questions that we can answer in these last few minutes?
I have a question for you about APA formatting. I have a
Mhm.
textbook that I had in my previous grad school, but it's dated from like 2005. Is it worth it for me to go out and purchase a new APA formatting textbook, or can I get all those resources online?
Yeah, well, there is quite a bit you can find online. Like I teach a class on the MS side, and it's a required textbook. The APA manual is a required textbook, so you might have that as a requirement in some of your courses. But if you go, I'll put the link here to the APA style website that has a lot of free information. Basically breaks down all of the different sections of the manual. You can find a lot of downloadable resources as well, but that said, I would recommend getting, especially in your first term, it wouldn't hurt to get the manual. It's about maybe $40 or so. You can get it Amazon. I have the ebook version, so it's really convenient. It's like an app that I just pull up, and I can choose to search for terms, and it'll pop up. And it is going to be a big part of your writing. No matter what, every class will have to, they'll say a paper has to be in APA format. So I would I would recommend, yeah, getting the seventh edition. Make sure it's the seventh edition. That was in 2020, so there hasn't been any recent updates, but just make sure it's the APA seventh edition, and that should be really helpful. But like I said, the APA style site also does have a lot of that information available for free. But if you can get your hands on the manual, I would definitely, it's worth the investment to pick it up. Yeah,
Thanks, Carlos. Appreciate it.
sure. Yeah, anything else? Any other questions? Speaking of APA, we do have like a webinar, like a whole hour that of a presentation on there that you can find on the YouTube site, and some other downloadable resources as well available on APA. All right, well, thank you everyone. Appreciate you all joining us today. So we will share the recording out once it's generated, and along with this PowerPoint presentation that we used for today.
And if you
So
have
thank you so much.
Oh,
Mhm.
sorry. I was going to say, if anyone has any other questions that they think of, later today, please feel free to reach out to us directly.
Oh, yes. And let me drop 1 second. I wanted to just drop our exit ticket here into the chat. If we could get you to complete our survey, just in the event that, getting your feedback on maybe anything, any future topics. Hopefully that works, that link there. If you could just take a quick minute to complete that. We'd love your feedback there, um, to let us know if there's any future topics. I'll post it again. Any future topics that you'd like us to cover. We're always open to see how we can best meet your needs. All right, so if you could do that, that would be great. But yeah, we hope you'll join us for our next term. We'll probably have a few more presentations. So look out for some emails at the beginning of the term, or we'll update our web pages for the spring. But until then, enjoy the rest of your term. Try not to stress too much, but do reach out to us. We're here to help, especially during, the crunch time of our finals weeks here as we end the fall. Thank you, everyone.
Care,
Y'all have a
everyone.
great rest of your day.